This is Shane Highley with the latest episode of Voices from the Castle. Today's purpose is we're going to talk about all things special education and attendance with our attendance and special education director, Mrs. Melinda Walton. So what I have is just a list of questions that I'm going to ask her, and she's going to answer those questions for us about the two topics. And then at the end, if you have anything else we want to say, we'll carry on from there. So we'll start with the first question from Mrs. Walton. When people hear special education, what do you wish they understood better?
In Tyler County schools, I feel like special education isn't just a label. It's about ensuring every student belongs and grows. As educators, it's our job to place students in a successful educational environment.
So, so how do IEPs support students in a real classroom setting?
In a real classroom, the IEP should provide a roadmap for learning, giving students the tools and teachers the guidance to succeed alongside their peers.
And so for those of you who are listening, an IEP, you may not know, is an individualized education plan, which is what students who receive special education services get. So the next question, so what does inclusion look like in our schools?
For us, inclusion is about putting support in place for all the students so they can meet the highest expectations. Our goal is to place students in their least restrictive environment. We would much rather see kids be in a classroom being provided their instruction by a certified teacher, for example, in math, then pulled out into a small group setting with a special education teacher who maybe is not as good with their math. So we would much rather see them inside that math class to be successful if they're able to do that. So that's always our goal, is to get them in the classroom as much as possible.
Yeah, and so and those students who get to be in the regular classrooms get to be with their peers. They get to do all the things that those students do, and maybe there's just some modifications to the assignments, or maybe some different choices for them to do for assignments. So being in an inclusion class, they're still getting all the same materials as those students would in that regular classroom, but they may have some modifications and additional help if needed. So what challenges do schools face in providing special education services for kids now?
Fortunately, we are very well staffed in Tyler County, and we have certified staff in our classroom for the most part. But we still face increasing academic and mental health needs and staffing shortages daily due to lack of substitutes, not lack of teachers, because our jobs are very well filled and with good people. But substitutes are often hard to find, and so sometimes that does reduce the help we can give our kids, because we're all trying to work together to make sure we have everybody covered. But we stay focused on delivering quality and individualized support for all the kids.
Yeah, and I think that those teachers who are special education teachers they're real special people. I mean, they have patience. They have to do a lot of paperwork that's involved with the federal government and the state Department of Education for special education students. But they love their students, and we love that they love their students here in Tyler County. So, special education is about, to me, it's about like individualized support. It's about opportunity, but it's not about labels. So we want in Tyler County for our students, or if someone walked into a classroom, you shouldn't know or see or be able to pick out who the special education students are. Or in general, if there are two teachers in the classroom, you shouldn't be able to pick out who the special education teacher is and the regular education teacher is. So those are the things we look for here in Tyler County and in our special education department. So Mrs. Walton wears two hats. She's the special education director, and she's also the attendance director. So I'm going to give her some questions about attendance that I think the public would like to know a little more about, and see what she does on a day-to-day basis with attendance. So first question, why does attendance matter beyond academics?
Well, I first want to say I've been the special ed and attendance director for 20 years, and over those 20 years, very few issues I've had with special education. But I often do get people upset with me about attendance, and truly, it's just because I care and I know how important it is for kids to be in school. So when you ask me why does attendance matter beyond academics, it's because attendance isn't just about showing up. It's about being connected, building relationships, accessing the support that kids can receive from all of our staff here. And Tyler County offers a tremendous amount of support. We have social workers, we have a nurse in every building, we have communities and school staff at our elementary and our middle school. And I can tell you that those three people that are communities and school staff, they work hard every day to make sure kids are in school. They're on the phone calling parents, they're getting in their car, driving to pick up kids. They're go above and beyond to make sure our kids are in school. Erin Heasley's our community and school staff at Borman. Leanne Butcher's our Sistersville, and Joey Asturi is our middle school. And then recently we just hired a school-based probation officer at our high school, and Carissa Smith, and she is just getting started, but I know she's going to bring to the table all the great things that they're bringing, and they are all working together along with our teachers and our custodians and our cooks and our guidance counselors. We just want kids here because it matters, and we want them to build those connections with our staff.
Yeah, and I'm sure that, and to kind of, you know, piggyback on what she said, Mrs. Walton doesn't always, she doesn't get up every day thinking, who can I call and pick on because their kid isn't coming to school? That's her job. That's what she's tasked to do. And I know sometimes parents will get upset because they think we're bugging them or we're harassing them. Well, we're not. We know the importance of kids coming to school. We know that they need to be here. And so that's what we're tasked to do. So over the last few years, in Tyler County, I would say our absentee rate is, it's very low. We're usually in the 90 percentile daily attendance. But chronic absenteeism has become an issue across the state. And for those of you who don't know what chronic absenteeism is, it's when one student misses a certain amount of days per year that makes them chronically absent. So maybe Mrs. Walton can tell us, because I cannot remember how many days that is.
Yes. So chronic absenteeism, it's actually defined as 10% of the number of days that we've been in school. So if we've been in school for 80 days, 80 instructional days, any student who is at 8 days is considered chronically absent. Many parents have been receiving regular emails. We have them set up, I think, at 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, 15 days, and 18 days. And we do get parents, call in and say, why did I get this email? Well, honestly, at this point in the year, if you get an email that says your student's been absent for 5 days, that's really not a big deal. But those emails are so that we can keep people informed. And honestly, that conversation can build things and help us understand, why is your student absent? Is there something going on? Is there an illness in the family? Things that are not normal. So chronic absenteeism is 10% of the total number of days that the student's been in school since the first day of school. And it's an chronic absenteeism is an early warning sign that a student may be struggling, and gives schools a chance to step in with various supports. For example, if a kid's absent like that, it's not uncommon for our social worker to reach out and just say, hey, what's going on? Is there something I can help you with? And honestly, most times there is something going on, and that student or that parent, they don't know who to reach out to get the support that they need. So it is 10% of days, and we just ask that people be patient with us and understand that those emails and phone calls and text messages aren't to be harassing. They're to be supportive.
Right. And so you talk about some barriers. So what barriers do families face when it comes to attendance? What do you see here in Tyler County that they struggle with?
Well, attendance challenges are often related to motivation, but they're also personal barriers our students are dealing with outside the school environment. If we can get our students involved or connected to something inside our school that interests them, we often see tremendous improvement. It doesn't have to be the football team or the basketball team. Kids, we want them involved in we have so many things, FFA, the simulators that are here in school. It can be as simple as that. So we try to provide all these great things to get kids to come to school so that they can have a reason to want to be here. I've always said kids don't jump out of bed and say, I'm going to math class today. But they do jump out of bed and say, I get to go on an FFA trip, or I have a ball game tonight that I want to go to school for. So getting our kids connected is the biggest barrier. But I think we're doing a really good job with that, and that's something we're going to continue to do.
I know with my own kids, like sometimes getting them to schools, it's a struggle. They don't want to get out of bed, and I oftentimes they're like, well, you get up and go to work every day because you get paid. Well, students are getting paid in different ways, whether that's being part of a club or the education that they're receiving. So that's kind of what I try to relate to my own kids is that you are going to a job every day, and it is your job to go to school and to learn and to be part of things. And but on the other hand, like in our district, we try to do things in supportive ways to help those students. So, what are some of those supportive ways that you feel like attendance is being addressed here?
Some of the supportive things that I think we do is we try to do early and often. We don't wait until the kids gets to 10, 12, 15 days. Our staff tries to have open communication with our students. We try to work together with the parents. We feel like making the students connected is a huge obstacle, and if we can get over that piece, then I think it becomes much easier. It's not uncommon for a parent to receive a phone call when their child's absent. Last week, I received a call from a parent concerned because the school calls her every time her child misses school, and she said, I either get a text or a phone call every time my kid is absent, and this never happened in my previous school. And initially, I think she was upset with the people, but then when I explained to her at Sistersville Elementary School that every student that is absent, unless we know why they're absent, they are getting a phone call, they're getting a text message, they're getting a knock on the door. And I can tell you that the success we've had with that at Sistersville Elementary is just tremendous. The secretary, the nurse, the communities and schools, social worker, principal, together we're really, it's showing that it works. So that's our big thing, is to just make sure early and often we're reaching out to people.
So I'm a big relationships kind of guy for when it comes to school and students and then the school climate and what it feels like. Because if those of you who work and go to work every day, it's not fun to go to work in a place that you don't like, or the people aren't nice, or you don't feel like you're welcomed, or you don't feel like you're a part of the team. So Mrs. Walton, what role do you see relationships in school climate play, in particular with attendance?
Well, first, I want to say I do absolutely agree with that. That's one thing whenever people ask me about Mr. Highley, like, what's the thing that I like the best? And that's what I like the best about him is he is right inside the schools. He's building relationships with kids. He knows our kids. He sees them out and about in the evenings, tells them the next day, good job at whatever they did. So I absolutely agree. Building those relationships is huge. And I do think that he does a great job, which when we see our leader doing that, it makes us want to do a good job. And I feel like when kids feel like they're seen, they're safe, they're supported, they're going to show up and they're going to engage. Strong relationships and a positive school climate, they make all the difference. We encourage students to find someone they can connect with. It can be their bus driver. It can be the custodian in the hallway, the success staff. We have a success center here at the middle high school. And I feel certain if you ask your students what happens in the Student Success Center, I would be very surprised if your child didn't know what goes on down there, because the staff in that area, that's all day long. That's what they're doing. They're building relationships with kids. They're checking on kids. They're guiding them through tough situations. They're sitting with them when they call a parent to talk about something. So I think that's something we do here is we work really hard to build relationships. And I absolutely agree that the school climate is better when we have those relationships.
Yeah, I mean that's the basis for. I mean, it's not a hard blueprint to have a good school system. I don't think it's just caring and being attentive and listening and things like that really help with that climate. So, kind of the takeaway that I would like the public to have is, attendance isn't about punishment. So I don't want people to think that we're being mean or we're harassing people. We need kids to come to school to learn, and we need kids to come to school to learn so they can be productive citizens when they leave our buildings after they're done with school. So we're just looking for some connection with kids, consistency with kids, and making sure that we want the students' well-being to be in the forefront of what we do. So, like to get rid of that negative connotation that attendance is a punishment. It's not. It's what we need for kids to be successful. So moving on. So attendance and special education. I oftentimes am like, how in the world do those two things go together? But I do have a couple questions that I'd like to ask Mrs. Walton about the two things together. So, how do you work with families when challenges extend beyond school, whether that's with attendance or with special education needs?
Well, as a school system and the staff in the school system, we can't fix everything that's happening outside the school, but I feel like we can be compassionate partners with families. And I think that's the key. We have to let families know that we're here to be a partner in any type of obstacle, whether it's happening at school, whether it's happening, on a sports team, in the home, in the workplace for students who are working. We want students to bring those things to us and talk to us about them, and we want to be part of the team to help fix that. Our parents often welcome the support of the school team when they are experiencing challenges with their students, because at first that's a hard thing. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with school. Why would I reach out to the social worker, or why would I reach out to the student's counselor? Well, when we bring parents to the table, you often walk in and parents look like, oh gosh, I didn't realize this would happen. But we have the resource officer, the principal, the teacher, the social worker. There's so many people around that table. And when they walk through the door, I always say, do not let this alarm you. This is because this is the team that we have here to help our students. So when things happen outside of school, we can't fix it all. But if it's something we can be part of a team to help, we want people to reach out to us.
And a lot of times too, those families. I think about this often is, maybe parents didn't have a great experience at school, so coming in and letting the school system work with them on problems, there's sometimes a barrier because of their bad experience they had when they may have been in school. So, what about some success stories you can share with us with a collaboration between attendance and special education?
Well, I've thought about that, and I thought over the last 20 years, I often have my students that were special education, not always, but often they go out into the workforce. They do real hands on work. They're working in the oil and gas, or they're out, they have their chemical operator certificate. Some, not all, but often they don't want to go into 4 more years of school, but they want to do a trade, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. And some people think going to trade school is like a downgrade. It absolutely isn't. I would have been perfectly fine if my son wanted to go to trade school. He does have his chemical operator certificate, and honestly, that may get him further than what he leaves with a 4 year bachelor's degree. So I see kids and they tell me I've got my certificate from here, or I'm working on this. And so that's always a good feeling whenever I see those kids out and about and they tell me that they're actually working out in the workforce. But something recently that happened that was related to attendance. I was in a truancy hearing, and the students' attendance has completely turned around. And I didn't think it was because of that truancy hearing necessarily. It just brought it to the table. And so I just asked the little girl, what's different this year? And she told me she likes the band, and Mr. Jennings doesn't tolerate missing band. And so she said, I have to come to school so that I can be present for practice. And if that's what it takes, I think that is a success story. And I can tell you that her grades have improved. Just the smile on her face has improved just being here. Oftentimes people don't realize when kids miss school, then when they come back to school, they don't feel like they belong. And it's not because our students are mean and don't want them to belong, but when you have a kid that misses 2 or 3 days, every week or every other week, whenever they do activities in class and they group up and they partner up, they don't have that student here to include. So they're not intentionally not including. The student doesn't bring themselves to the table to be included.
Yeah, and so like you talk to employers out there, and there are two things right now in the job market that employers are looking for. One, can you pass a drug test? Two, will they come to work?
Hmm.
And that's huge. So coming to school and having good attendance in school, regardless if you're you have special education services or not, employers are looking for people who come to work. So they look back and say, well, you missed 15 days a year. You're going to miss 15 days a year at this company. I don't need you to be an employee. So attendance, that's another thing with attendance. Employers are looking at that now. They don't care so much about your degree or what you have. They want people who will come to work. And I think you learn that by coming to school on a regular basis. So, school systems don't work in silos. So it's important to see how, all the entities come together. And when they all come together, it's for students. So we use all of our resources, all of our services, whether it's special education, the attendance office, all those different sections have to come to one general consensus about one thing, and that's students, and that's how successful school systems work. So, couple more questions. I think I have a couple more questions. Do I have a couple more questions? Oh yeah. Family and community partnerships. So, what can families do to support attendance and learning?
Just as Mr. Highley said, I often get 5 or 6 calls in a school year, and people ask me, this student is applied to work for me. What was their attendance like? And they rarely ever ask me what their grades were like. But they want to know, did that kid show up for school? Because if they didn't show up for school, they're going to say they're probably not going to show up for me. But what I find is the biggest thing that a family can do is get their child in the routine of coming to school. And people think, oh, it's just preschool, or oh, it's just kindergarten. But when your children see that you let them miss that preschool or kindergarten because, oh, it's just we're going to have a lazy day in our pajamas or whatever, then when they get into first grade, second grade, third grade, that attitude just continues. Then when they get into middle and high school and they are a little bit more independent, they have their own way of thinking, then the parents reaching out to me for help. Like, I don't understand. I can't get them to school. And I always pull up that history and I look back and I say, well, they missed 20 days in preschool, 23 days in kindergarten. So we have to work together at that time to turn that around and get the parent to understand, like, if we can just get them in a good routine and communication. When your student's missing, call. They have strep throat. Let us know. Let your kids see that you called and reported them off, per se, so that they understand the importance of, when you do miss, you have to let people know why. So I think just strong routines, open communication, and encouragement from home will go a long way with us.
Agreed. So how, we talk about parents, how can community partners help schools support students?
Well, schools can't do it alone. And so I feel like community partners, they help remove some of those barriers. And for example, like I said, when that high school student holds a job, if they're not coming to school, then they oftentimes will work with us and say, well, if you didn't come to school, you can't come work your 4 to 10 shift. And so when we build those relationships together, then oftentimes this kid wants their paycheck, per se, because they don't always see school as that paycheck as we know it is. But so they will work with us for that. And as Mr. Highley said a little bit earlier, like, showing up is a huge barrier, and that's what people want to know. In preschool through 8th grade, students should be bringing home an attendance report card also this year. And that attendance report card, I've had a lot of feedback from parents, and it was eye-opening for them. But I also had a parent call me whose husband hires people, and he told me she told me when he opened that, he said the student's straight A's did not mean as much to him as the student was in the green, because he'd only missed 2 days of school and he was truly sick. Because he said, as an employer, I can teach you what needs to be done here, but if you won't show up to learn, I can't hire you. I can't keep you. So again, I think that's the takeaway from all this, is we're just trying to teach students how to be productive citizens, how to know the importance of coming to school.
Right. So let's say a family's struggling with attendance. What are some resources that are out there that can help these families?
If you're struggling with attendance or anything, honestly, with the school system, don't look at that as failure as a parent. Reach out. Like, call your student's principal. You can call the secretaries and say, I'm struggling. I don't know who to talk to. They know who to get you to, whether it be a school counselor. Again, we have the communities in schools, social workers, and you might not like somebody that you've had a bad experience with, and that's okay, because we have other people. So don't just shut us out and not let us be a supportive partner in your student's education because you've had a bad experience with someone. I say all the time, if I've had a bad experience with someone, don't invite me to the table. I just make that tension, right off the bat.
Mhm.
It's okay to not invite me. It's okay to just have a meeting with the principal and the social worker. We don't get our feelings hurt here. We realize that, we're not going to make everybody happy, but there is somebody here that's going to work with you as a family and your student to make this experience better.
Yeah, and just on my end, I guess a shameless plug for the Student Success Center here at the high school. That we know that we can't provide all services needed for kids to be successful, but we have people who know who to get a hold of. We can make those connections with outside agencies that can help. If you're having problems with utility bills or making rent or anything like that, I know right now the world it's a struggle. So we have people that can help. We may not have the people here, but we have the people who can connect you with those who can. So first off, I'd like to thank Mrs. Walton for coming on the show today to talk a little bit about attendance in special education. So just to close, I'd say, every student that we have has a story, and it's kind of our goal and our job, our task to make sure that we write that story and make sure that story is on a positive trajectory moving forward for that student. And when they leave us, they're ready to be a successful citizen in a crazy world. And that's, that comes with a lot of different supports in place, like we talked about a lot of those today. So I would like to say to end, thank you for listening. And this has been your latest episode of Voices from the Castle.